Hello and welcome to the Uneducated PT podcast with me, your host, Carl O'Rourke. The goal of this podcast is to bring on interesting and knowledgeable people from all walks of life, learn a little something from each conversation, and for you, the listener, to learn something from each episode. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the box below, show some support, and I'll see you on the next episode. Chloe, can you start by telling the listeners a little bit about how you entered the fitness industry, how you started off your fitness journey in general, actually, and then a little bit about what you do today?
Yeah, sure. So I started off years and years ago. So I used to do GB synchronized swimming. So I competed at that kind of like national and then international level. And then kind of after that, took a few years off, getting to grips with kind of what I was doing with my own fitness, I guess, outside of the pool. And then I started going into more gym related, weight training, resistance related type training. And then eventually I got into kind of coaching, online coaching, and kind of where I am now.
Did you have an identity crisis like most people after they leave
Yes.
sport?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. A hard identity crisis. I think it's so weird. I think when you finish elite sport or sport of any kind, like it's your whole personality. Like you're waking up super early, you're training, you're going to school. Like I used to have it at school where everyone would like go to competitions and they like write good luck all over the whiteboards and like put stuff in my desk and on my lockers and stuff. Like it was so cool. And then you were just like, oh, you're just normal again. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, I don't want to be normal. What do I do next? And that's where you get that like identity shift of like, what now? I think.
Was it intense them few years?
I'm not sure if it was intense, but I just felt a little bit lost.
Mm.
Like, I just felt like I didn't have much of a purpose. And I think when you've gone from being so driven towards like a set purpose, like, if you're competing, you got three competitions in a year,
Yeah.
A, B, C, that's what you work towards. And then you have a break and then you go again. And it's like when you don't have that structure, it's kind of like, right, well, what do I do now? What am I working towards? And
Mm.
I think when you don't have a purpose or something you're working towards, it can make things feel a little bit just like you're floating. You just got no real like drive.
Mm.
And again, I think if you're someone that's had that before and then you lose it, it's a bit like, yeah, what do I do now?
Where do I put my energy towards now?
Where do I put my energy? And if you're a highly energized person like I am, you
Absolutely.
know, you you've got a lot of energy, and then I think sometimes that can go internally, and I
Mm.
don't always think that's the best thing. I think if you're active or hyperactive or you just got a lot of energy to give, you need to exert it on something positive or purposeful because
Mm.
otherwise I think you start looking for problems where they don't exist and
Yeah,
that causes more problems.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. Do you feel like you found that now in regards to running your own business?
Oh yeah, my brain doesn't switch off. But I was thinking about this weirdly earlier because I was thinking I everything everywhere that my thoughts go, it's with purpose.
Hmm.
Like it's like, how can I help this person or how could I be better at this instead of just being like, oh, well, I don't know what to do or there's always something I'm working towards. I think that's what I like. It's like you're always aiming for something.
Yeah, I remember listening to a podcast before, and they were someone was talking about how uh, high level athletes always end up doing well going into entrepreneurial spaces because one thing that they're when you've done high level sport, you're not afraid to throw yourself into the deep end of things, literally for you. You're not
Yeah.
you're not you're not afraid of failing and then going again because that happens all the time where you might lose a race or you might miss a lift or whatever it is. So you kind of have a little bit of resilience, and you kind of back yourself more than like someone who hasn't played sport before, or hasn't competed in sport before. They might not know what it feels like to put themselves in that uncomfortable position and kind of go for things. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
completely. I think resilience is probably my biggest superpower, like genuinely, because I don't think, and this is not me putting myself down, but I don't think I'm like anything crazy special. Like, I don't think I'm anything mad different to anybody else.
Mm.
I just think I have a really high tolerance for just like getting knocked down and standing back up again.
Mm.
And I do think a lot of that has come from sport. I mean, high end sport is brutal.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but like mentally, it's so tough. And it's like, yeah, I did well and I got to a high level, but there were so many knockbacks, there's so many kickbacks, there's so many days where you're just like, God, this has taken everything out of me.
Mm.
But then you get up and you go again the next day.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what creates momentum.
yeah, yeah. And that's almost the same in business. It's like you're gonna have
Yeah.
knocks, you're gonna have days where things don't go well, or but you just get up and you go again and you try to figure out the next time how to do it better.
Yeah. And I do think that's something I underestimated in business. If
Mm.
I'm honest, I'm a very like best case scenario, like positivity kind of person.
Yeah,
And then I got into business and it was like a whole reality check. I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like,
But you
aha.
got, but isn't that like a good thing as well? Because it's like if you knew how hard it was going to be, you probably wouldn't have been like, oh, I'll probably do something else.
No. Yeah.
I'll probably get a job from of someone else.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah,
have probably stayed what I was doing. Like I had a good job. Like I was happy in what I was doing. Like I was just in corporate and like, very comfortable, very relaxed. Probably would have probably, I don't know. Would I? I don't think I would have. But yeah, it's something you look back on and you're like, wow, I underestimated what that was going to be.
yeah. But
Um,
it's almost part of your DNA, so you enjoy that even if it's a struggle.
Yeah. And I think now as well, it's like the person who I am now, I wasn't 2 years ago.
Yeah,
And that sounds so like cliche and like
yeah,
I wasn't who I was, but genuinely. So it's like I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing a podcast or be confident about this kind of thing. And now it's just like, oh yeah, like
Well,
that's
this guy,
fine. That's fine.
so I'm going to quote a few things that you've said. So
Oh dear.
you've have to already running ahead of yourself. So you said, which I really, really enjoyed, you wrote, confidence comes from doing things that scare the shit out of you. So, and I was going to ask you to give a few examples of times in your life where you took action, even though you were scared. And I suppose
Yeah.
like, even doing a podcast like this, because a lot of people will be afraid to talk on a mic and there'll be so much in their head thinking about, oh my God, what if I say something wrong? And people are listening to me and stuff like that. But like you were like, yeah, book it in, let's go. Well, yeah, let's go tomorrow. And I think that that kind of confidence only comes from continuously doing things that scare you.
Yeah. I think the first thing to say about that is I do love to talk. So
Yeah.
I think like when someone's like, oh, here's a platform, do you want to chat? It's like, oh yeah, love that. I think when you're saying like about the confidence situation, I think I created that reel because I think I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that I've done that I think I've taken myself out of my comfort zone
Hmm.
for. And for example, starting my Instagram, starting my fitness Instagram. To
Hmm.
now, people probably look at it and they think, oh, she's got a couple of thousand followers, like she's confident, she's posting all the time. Now, 2, 3 years ago, I remember buying a tripod, take it into the gym 4 or 5 times before I even took it out of my bag.
Yeah.
Like I had people come over and talk to me and I literally just like wanted to leave. I was so uncomfortable. Starting my fitness Instagram, I blocked every single person I could find from the gym so that no one in my gym knew my page. No, like none of the PTs, no one in there, because I was so terrified that someone might find it,
Yeah.
which seems stupid because you want people on Instagram to find your page, right?
Yeah. But it makes
Um,
sense as well. It makes perfect sense because it's fair judgment, right?
Yeah, completely fear of judgment. And, I had the page for 3 months before I even posted on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost like with me, it's like if something terrifies me, I'll give myself a date.
Mm.
Like I was terrified to quit my corporate job and
Mm.
go into business. But gave myself a date. I was like, this is when I'm going to do it. And then I have a time period where I'm like leading up to like convincing myself that I'm going to do it. I
Yeah.
tell people I'm going to do it. Then other
Mm.
people ask me, oh, when are you doing that? And I'm like, oh, this day.
Yeah.
And then it seems less scary then.
Does the anxiety not build up day and day?
And
Yeah.
it makes you take action.
Yeah.
Because I think your brain, like, or definitely my brain, works towards solutions. So
Mm.
if I give it something and I'm like, this is what you're doing on this day, it will like work around to make a solution for that.
Mm.
Did you find that? Because you blew up, because I like knew your page before you went kind of viral.
Hmm.
Did you find that when you went viral that you had that like fear of judgment of people watching your stuff?
Not really, because I had been on social media for like 5 years before I blew up. So
Okay.
I was, but I did have that. I did. I 100% had that experience when I started.
Yeah.
So I was, running boot camps and doing personal training for like 3 or 4 years before I transitioned online in 2019. And when I started like writing up fucking blogs on, how to track your calories and this and Slimming World and all that, and all my friends or my old clients were like, why is he doing this? Why is he talking on camera? Why is he not in the gym? Because they didn't
Yeah.
understand it yet. Like it wasn't like before COVID when everything kind of like blew up with the online scene, and like they were just confused by what I was doing. And I knew that there was people kind of almost not judging me, but kind of like smirking and like what's he kind of doing then. And I kind of just had to ride that wave, and then eventually it was like, oh, this is just what Carl does now. And by the time it came around where I did go kind of viral, um, I had already done the
Got over
repetition
that.
so many times
Yeah.
that I was comfortable with it. But I also wasn't that comfortable with that amount of eyes on me. I think I got to a stage where like I had a decent following, I had good engagement with it, and I was kind of used to my audience. And I got to the stage where like I wanted to, I always wanted to blow up. And then before I did, it was so funny that I said to myself, as like, oh, I actually don't want that, because it's not like
So many
the
opinions,
yeah,
so many eyes.
it's not like the
Yeah.
quality of your audience gets better. It actually gets worse, because you have people who know you and trust you, and because you show up every day for them. But then you just get this big jump of people who they're not. A lot of them aren't there to be supportive to your business or to your page. They're just there to eyeball and whatever he makes of
Just
mistakes, or
watch.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
watching essentially. And if it's something that they don't agree with, straight in with a smirky comment and stuff like that. So like now I'm very much like very conscious of the last thing that I want is fame kind of thing. So I've gone
Yeah.
more. I've got, even though I still put out a couple of videos. I've gone for a more style of writing, because I want my face to be less shown, and more just kind of do the creative process, because I do love content creation. I
The
love the
creative.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love the creativity of it. So yeah, that was kind of the what happened to me essentially.
Yeah, I so agree with that because I think I can't remember whether I read it or listened to it in a podcast, and it was saying like the reason why in this generation so many people's mental health is so bad is because we actually were never meant to have, like, biologically we were never meant to have this many eyes on us,
Yeah,
never meant to have this many opinions, never meant to take on board this many people socially. So it's like if your platform gives you 100,000 people's opinions, it's like
That's
whoa.
that's so that's too much for our brains, our
Yeah.
cavemen, and it's the same the other way as well. It's like the amount of information that we're taking on at any given moment. It's like, all
Oh,
right, like put your phone down, have a break, go outside, and go for a
go.
walk or something.
Yeah,
Like,
I find this all the time. I've got so more aware of this now and I have got better, but I'm still not perfect.
mm,
But it's like, I really struggle. Do you know when you go on Instagram and it's like, you need to do this now? And obviously, it's everyone using like hooks and trying to get people to watch their content and it's marketing strategy.
yeah,
But sometimes you just go on and you just think, oh my goodness, like I'm behind or
yeah,
like I
yeah,
need to do something immediately.
yeah.
And it's just so overwhelming. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
There is no switch off.
No,
It's really
at
it's
all.
re it's really difficult, and like it's like it's setting yourself boundaries. And I'm the worst person in the world at setting myself boundaries. I'm like, I'll have my phone on me the minute I wake up, on it the minute I go to
Yeah,
sleep, on it, and I'm like I know I should do better, and I still struggle to do better.
yeah. I
Like,
have days where I'm really good and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm really good today. And
yeah,
then I have other days where I'll do something, but then afterwards it's funny because I've started to kind of like check myself and I'll really notice the difference in like my mental state
yeah,
to
100%.
like whether I, for example, if I scroll right until the point I go to bed, my
Mm,
mental state when I go to bed is just exhausted.
yeah.
If I take the hour off before, even if it's like watching TV or chatting to someone,
Yeah.
the difference is huge.
Huge. And that it's setting boundaries, and you notice the impact of that. And I think for a while I did that really well, and then I started to kind of slip in it, and then I definitely noticed it's all these little small decisions throughout the day that
Yeah,
really impact you. But like you have to treat yourself like you are the business, because you are the business. And if you're the business, like, you need to do all them simple little things so you're not absolutely burnt out, or
burnt out.
yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've had this like horrific cold that seems to have come from like I don't know, mid-February time, but I
Yeah.
got wiped out. I never get ill. It's like my thing that I
Yeah.
don't get ill. And I was so ill. And it was such a weird learning curve because I was like, if you don't sit and watch TV all day and do nothing, you
Mm.
actually are doing detriment to your business because you cannot get up tomorrow and help people.
Yeah.
And it was such a weird, like, I'm not like that, I'm always sort of on the go. So it
Yeah, but
was like,
isn't that well, I don't know if it is. I was gonna say, isn't it like a big issue if you can't take a day for yourself or like just sit with yourself? But at the same
yeah,
time, and I don't know if it's like because I know like people are designed if I know there's some people who could just sit on a beach all day and all week and all month and they'll be completely happy. And then there's other people who just they need to be doing something, they need to be building something, they need to feel productive. So I know like we have different personality types.
mm,
But like I think that definitely with like social media side of things, and especially if you're working online, you feel like you can never switch off, and that's
switch
probably
off.
an issue.
Yeah. I think it's weird for me. Like, I don't know if you have this, but like, it's when I'm with people, I'm fine.
Mm,
When I'm with somebody else, like
yeah,
if I'm with my mates or anything, I'm off and switched off.
yeah,
But if I'm by myself, I think that's when those little bad habits start to creep in
yeah,
because oh, I just could like check something or I
yeah,
just could reply to this person.
yeah.
And it's just about constantly like going back over your boundaries and being
Yeah.
like, am I
That's
actually sticking to them? It's hard.
That's why I think even like sport is like if you can find even a sport that you can play even just like recreationally, like you're completely engaged in what you're doing. And I think
Yeah.
like when I retired from football last year, and I really noticed the difference even in my mental health. The fact that like when I was playing football still, even if it was just amateur, it was like maybe 1, 2, 3 hours a week where like I'm completely engaged with what I'm doing. I'm outside. I'm completely present. I can't be near my
Present.
phone because
Yeah.
I'm on the pitch. I'm interacting with other people, and then I can go home and I feel 10 times better and actually be able to work and be productive versus not doing anything all day and then being able to like half watch telly, half scroll through emails, half kind of be on the laptop typing.
Yeah. It's like that full present like mode, isn't it?
Yeah,
That you have to switch on. But I do think it's difficult to switch in and out of it. I do agree.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think if you're able to just set up things throughout the day that force you to be off your phone rather than just trying to willpower your way through it, like, all right, I'm going for a walk with my friend today. That's, going to be something where I'm reducing my screen time or whatever the case may be. I wanted to ask you a question though, because your bio says, shy girl to that gym girl, yeah?
Yeah.
But you don't like. Is that something that you struggled with when you were younger, being shy? Because I don't perceive you as someone who is shy, but obviously that's because of the work that you've probably done.
So this is really funny because it's actually quite I think a misconception about me.
Mhm.
I am what I would describe, I'm a bit of a conundrum. Like I would describe myself as a very introverted extrovert.
I
So
understand.
I'm a massive extrovert. Like, I love chatting to people. I'm very friendly. Like, if you came up to me and you're just like, hey, and started a conversation, like, happy days, I'll sit and chat to you for half an hour. But there's certain things which really make me quite sort of go in my shell or quite shy. And I think
Mm,
I've done so much work over the since owning a business and being on social media, so much work to get more confident. And I think going from a place where I was so nervous and shy and didn't feel comfortable to now feeling how I do, I think that's the journey that I want to take people on.
yeah.
So I guess like a past version of me to kind of like a current version of me is that sort of like shy girl to how you feeling like that girl?
What was the biggest mental shifts that had you going from someone who was quite shy and anxious to someone who is a lot more confident? What do you think has changed? How has that changed you?
What do you mean? How has that shift changed me, or
Yeah.
what created that shift?
Or no, what created that shift?
Um, I went through like a really big breakup.
Mhm.
So I think I was like with someone at the time, and then like I split up from that person, and I literally had like a full identity just reshift.
Yeah.
I think there's like big moments in your life that kind of like shape you to that next chapter or kind of force you up that next level. And I think for me that was one of them. And I was just like, right, that's it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna quit my job, and I'm just gonna go for it.
Would you say when you were in that relationship, you were quite a shy and anxious person?
Certainly at points, yeah, certainly
Mm.
at points. But I do largely think a lot of that confidence has come from, again, kind of what I said earlier, like doing the things that scare you
Mhm.
or just doing the thing that you think you can't do. And I think confidence comes from that kind of action and momentum
Mm.
because you
So
look back and you're like, oh, I can, you know?
yeah. Well, would you say that you were kind of dependent on the relationship and then going out and being on your own and chasing after kind of goals and aspirations that's helped?
Yeah, I think I put a lot of like my self-worth
Yeah.
into that relationship and
Yeah.
how that relationship made me feel. And that was like completely on me, right? But I think when I came out of that, I was like, I have to be the person that tells myself I've got value. I have to
Mm.
be the person that drives myself forward. I have to be the person that looks after me. And I think it was in all of that that I kind of actually like it sounds so cliche, but like you sort of find love for yourself instead of looking for it from external places.
Yeah. Which
Um,
means that you're always under the control of someone else, basically, whether they
yeah,
want you or not, or whether they value you or not. And
yeah.
that's not a good place to be.
No, and do you know what's funny is like I see it so often, even with people that I'm working with. And it's like, I had a chat with a client the other day and she was like, I just feel really awful this week. And I kind of lent into it and asked her what she'd been doing. And she'd been going on loads of dating apps. And I was like, you don't feel good about yourself. You're
Mm.
looking for that external validation from somebody else. I was like, that is never going to make you happy. And actually, it's going to make you worse because they're going to pick you up. And then when they want to drop you, they can drop you and then you're back in square one, if not a couple of steps back.
Yeah,
Um,
it makes sense. You're literally just swiping for that dopamine hit. Oh,
Dopamine.
they ticked me, they ticked me, they ticked me, they ticked me, and a lot of times you don't even go on the date anyway. It's literally just for
No.
that quick release of it.
But also, if you're someone that is self-conscious or doesn't like the way they look, and then you're using an app which is purely focused on validation from photos or like what you look like in a picture,
Yeah.
you're just causing yourself a multitude of problems,
Yeah,
honestly.
that's not a good place to be.
No.
So do you think being in the gym has helped you with that? With finding compassion for yourself, self-worth in yourself, not looking for it in external validation of other people?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
Massively. I think a lot of it has been with the confidence side of things. Like, and I think the more you say you film in the gym, say there's like 30 people in the gym and I get out my tripod, there has to be a certain level of me that's like, I actually do not care about what people think
Yeah.
about me right now to get that tripod out. And the more times you do it, if you do it with there's 5 people in there, you gain a bit of confidence, 10 people in there, you gain a bit of confidence. And it sounds so minor, but I think it's little things like that that do build you up and then extend to other areas.
Mm.
That you're like, well, I did that little small thing, so why don't I do a little bigger thing and then a bigger thing and then a bigger thing,
Mm,
and
that
it
makes that makes
snowballs.
that makes perfect sense. And what
Mm.
about, so obviously being in the gym has helped with your confidence, but how has it impacted your confidence outside of the gym? In what ways?
So I wouldn't necessarily say the gym in itself maybe has done this, but I think being on social media
Yeah.
has massively helped me because I think it was kind of what you were saying earlier when you were like, before you blew up and kind of people and your friends and your social group was like watching what you were doing. And I used to get really nervous when I would have someone that I knew follow me. And then I'd
Mm.
see their name in my stories or like in my interactions, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, that person just saw that. Like,
What did I say?
what did I say? And I would say like sometimes I've definitely like got a bit less unhinged and unfiltered, but at the start I was very just like
Yeah,
unhinged and
yeah.
unfiltered and
Let me
you know,
say what I think everyone's gonna enjoy rather than what I think, kind of thing.
what I think,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think seeing more people and more people coming onto your page and more people in, and also, right, people that don't think I see you in my story views, I see you in my story views. Like, I know who you are. Do you know what I mean? People that shouldn't be stalking my page, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but I think when you have that and you have social media and you're putting yourself out there all the time, you're showing up good days, bad days. Like before I was a content creator, I didn't realize when you have an awful day, like really bad, you still have to show up on social media
Yeah.
because that's what people are seeing from you. That's the kind of,
So
you run,
consistency.
yeah, consistency. You're running a business. You have
Yeah.
to put, your like your business over your kind of own feelings
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
And I think again, it's all of those things that I think have built up that wider picture of just like who I am in the gym, who I am outside the gym. Um, it all kind of feeds in.
It's like you just said. It's like feeling the fear and doing anyway. The fear of judgment, fear of what will people say. But regardless of them uncomfortable feelings, you still showed up and did the thing anyway. And that's
Yeah.
the best way to get confidence is to take action on the things that scare you.
Yeah. And I also think it's like the more I've done this and the more I've thought about it, it's like I don't want to get to like the biggest thing I hate, right? And the word potential. Like when someone says to you, like, "Oh, you got so much potential." Like, no, I don't want potential. I want to win, or like I want to do the thing. Like, I don't want someone to say she could have, but she didn't. I
Mhm.
want someone to be like, she did.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like with everything, I think it's like always wanting to stop procrastinating, stop being scared of that thing, and taking actions that help you do it, as
Mm,
opposed to being like, well, she could have done that, but
mm.
you know,
Living with the regret then of not doing what you
yeah.
wanted to do because of fear of judgment.
Or other people's opinions or
Yeah.
something that's holding you back, like whatever it is. That it scares me more to not reach my potential
Yeah,
than other people's opinions.
yes, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to go into gym advice as well for
Yeah.
anyone who might be listening who might be starting off their health and fitness journey and want a little bit of advice off you. So, what are some of the common mistakes that you see in the gym that you think hold people back or holds back real progress? Maybe talk a little bit about mistakes that you used to make or things that you do now that really works well for your clients that you didn't do before or
So I would say the biggest thing I think is quite common. So my niche is like women, predominantly like female fat loss,
yeah.
also like gym anxiety, new starters, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
The biggest, I think, like not problem, but the common thing that I see is people rush,
Yeah.
right? So they wake up, they have something to push them, they've seen themselves in a photo, or they've spoken to someone, they've gone to a family event, and someone's been like, "Oh, you've put on a bit of weight," whatever it is. It's got them in a bad headspace. They've gone, right, that's it. I'm changing my whole life.
Hmm.
I'm going to the gym. I'm starting tomorrow. They wake up, they go and put themselves in a situation that they are so uncomfortable with. Like if they are someone that's not confident in the gym, they go in peak time and try and do like a full session.
Yeah.
And then they leave and they're like, that was the worst thing that has ever possibly happened to me. I'm never doing that
Yeah.
again.
That place is insane. I'm never going back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I hated that so much.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, look, if you literally just went in, got on a treadmill for half an hour, and like I know people repeat that, and it's like get on a treadmill and like da 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 da. But genuinely, like just go and get comfortable in the environment. You don't have to do it immediately. Like I think, and it leads into everything else. But like think about it: social media, quick hit dopamine. Scrolling on dating apps, quick hit dopamine. Like everything, like even Uber Eats and takeaways and things like that. Straight away to your door, I can have it now.
Yeah.
It's people try and do that with fitness, and it's like, I've never done this before, I'm not confident, I want it now. And
Mm.
it doesn't work effectively that way. I think people need to take like a slower approach where they're like, okay, cool, this is what I want to achieve. Step back 3 months from that, where do I need to be? 3 months from that, where do I need to be? If you want to get into the gym and you want a routine, start with actually just going in there and just like being in there and just walking on a treadmill or
So,
doing an exercise.
Chloe, I'm your client, and I'm like, but Chloe, please, I just want to lose the weight now. I want to get the results now. What do I need to do?
You want to get the results right now and
Yeah.
you're impatient.
Yeah. So how do we keep someone? How do we so someone who doesn't have that patience and is just
Mm.
like you said that they've had some sort of a moment where they're like, oh shit, something needs to change now, and so they want drastic change right now and they're prepared to do drastic action in order to to achieve them
To
results.
achieve something.
Yeah, so like how do you have that conversation with them?
So do you know what? Normally, so when people come on board with me, right, they do like the whole onboarding form, and I ask them, what do you think you can manage? What do you want to manage?
Hmm.
And say, for example, if they're doing training with me, I say, right, how many sessions can you fit in the week? Oh, I could do 5. Brilliant. First conversation I have, cool, we're going to put in 3. And they're like, what do you mean? But like, I said I can do 5. And I'm like, you said you can do 5 now because you're motivated, you're coming in, you're excited, you want the goals right now. That's like idealism. That's amazing. I love that. Go for it.
Hmm.
Realism is you can fit in three.
Hmm.
And like, I would rather fit in three this week. You smash it. You're like, yep, hit it, done. Next week we'll do four.
Hmm.
But if you can't hit, I would rather someone says, I've smashed three than I failed hitting five.
Yes, that makes
Because
much
the
more sense.
the tweaking that mentality for them going forward, massive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like even if like you say, all right, uh, you've set two, they've set five. Um, they could have hit three. They hit three sessions that week, so it doesn't matter if they've hit three sessions regardless. But because their expectation was they've to hit two, but they actually hit three. Like that's even they're doing even better than they were doing
Yeah.
before.
They've
But if
smashed it.
their expectation was, oh no, I set out to do five, but I only did three. Oh, now I'm failing, and then that's kind of that demotivates them essentially.
Yeah. And if it's that whole thing of like they're rushing it as well,
Mm.
like if they hit that initial roadblock and it just feels too hard too quick,
Yeah,
they do just give up.
yeah, yeah. And
And
also, if you're starting off with small wins, but they're hitting them small wins, they're reinforcing the idea that they can do this. So like you're getting wins very quickly, very early, which again is going to mean that they're more engaged to keep at
yeah,
this longer, and the longer they
yeah.
keep at it, the better results they're going to get.
It goes so much down to like self-belief of what people
Hmm.
think they can achieve. And like nine times out of 10, like I've had people come on to me, and they've never used a gym before.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden they're in the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. And we're like, God, like never would have thought that would have been me. But it's because we've done it over 12 months, not 2 weeks.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Um,
In terms
yeah.
of training advice, so lifting heavy weights and training for performance,
Mhm.
what advice? Give me three pieces of training advice you'd have for your clients or for the newbie starting. Maybe some mistakes that they make.
Stop going for like 200 kg on the hip thrust. Don't need to. If your form is rubbish, you are just going to injure yourself. I see so many people like, oh, I've smashed this weight on the hip thrust. I'm going to get a massive ass. No, you're not. You're going to get a back injury.
Mhm.
Like, tone it right down. You can
Yeah,
get so much glute progress from that exercise by doing it at a lower weight. Massive common mistake I see. Second thing is your tempo.
yeah.
So many people, especially if you're nervous, you're a bit anxious, you're trying an exercise for the first time, really going fast on the exercises and just like slamming down the weights all the time.
Yeah.
Just slow it right down, take a hot sec.
Mhm.
Would be the first two. And the last one would be stop changing up your workouts like every single week. um,
That a
if it,
mistake you see, Mike? Did you used to make that mistake when you were younger?
I think I was just looking for the next shiny thing all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like,
Which is even
this isn't
which is
working.
even
What do I
more
do?
prevalent now that you have social media and everyone's showing different exercises all the time.
Yeah. And again, like I think there's so much with if people want a quick fix, they look for a shiny thing to give them a quick fix.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, actually, if your routine feels boring or it feels like you're repeating things over again, it's probably a sign that you've ticked it off, you're
Yeah.
consistent with it, and it's actually working if you give it a chance.
Mm. Yeah. So
Um,
people see an exercise. Okay, I use this exercise and I grew my glutes three times over. So if you just do this exercise, you'll also grow your glutes, and then that happens to each exercise each week, and then they realize why they haven't seen any progress.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But then they go on social media and someone's telling them to do something different.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like for me, it's like if you are paying one person and you're paying a coach, listen to them over all of the noise that you're hearing on social media. Like I think you just need to pick one thing that you're doing, try
hmm,
that, stick to it, see if it works. If it doesn't, then go to the next thing.
yeah.
But having given it time to work first.
Yeah, so yeah, if you're changing your workouts every week, you're not going to make progress, and the whole point is, it's less about the exercise and more about the fundamental principles of the training,
Yeah,
making sure that the weights are going up every week, that you're getting more efficient at it, that it's moving properly,
yeah,
like you said, controlling the tempo, getting full range of motion, like quality over quantity of
quantity.
exercises. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it is hard because again, like, I actually met one of my clients yesterday and we did like a workout together. And she was sort of speaking to me about stuff. She was like, gosh, like there's so much to think about. And she was doing like RDLs. And she was just like, there's so much to think about all the time. And I was like, but it does get easier. Like, I think it's just focusing on a couple of things, trying to do that as best you can, and then adding something else in instead of trying to just overwhelm yourself with lots of different things.
Yeah, like the last thing you want to do is get someone who's fresh to the gym, like everything's foreign to them, and then you have written out like 10 exercises on a program, and they're like, oh my God, how am I going to find all these things around the gym?
Yeah. And then they just go in and they're like, do you know what? I'm just leaving. This is
Yeah, yeah.
horrible.
This,
Like,
this is just too hard. I think when you've been training for so long, because like anyone who's a coach has obviously been exercising or been in the gym for a long period of time. I think you forget what that feeling feels like for people when they enter a gym.
yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, like, I don't know, I think gym anxiety is so much more common than people think. Because I think even like if I mean I've seen massive influencers that have millions of followers and then they'll post on their story like, oh, I went to a new gym and I got really anxious. And you're like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's not just new starters, it can be people that are going back after a long time, or it can be people that you think are super confident, but actually maybe they've had something happen in their life that's knocked them a bit, or they're just feeling a bit vulnerable and they walk in like, oh, and so I think it's actually a lot more common than people think. And that's why I tackle it a lot in my content, because it's something that I think if you can get over that, it's massive.
Yeah, and like if I would get it as well if I'm going to maybe somewhere where I haven't been before, maybe a class
Yeah,
I haven't done before. Like I think it's when we want to stick to familiarity, all right? Because
yeah,
that's what feels safe, and what we're looking for is safety.
yeah.
So when you're able to kind of stick to a gym where you feel comfortable, even going at the same time every day, because you'll end up seeing the
Same
same
people.
people, and like yeah, everything just feels like because it only takes like one or two things to throw you off, and I know that I've had that with clients. It's like they'll go at 3 o'clock and they feel great every time, and then they went at 7 o'clock and it was busy, and there was someone else on the machine that they usually use at that time, and it threw them off, and then they didn't
Yeah,
finish the rest of their program. They're like, right, I'm going. So like it is, it's familiarity, like, and that's why sometimes I even say to clients, all right. Like for the first week, just walk in there, get to the door, get to the treadmill, just walk on the treadmill for half an hour and then leave because
yeah.
like all you're what you're doing is you're just getting yourself familiar with the building.
Environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So much of like anxiety comes from just like unfamiliarity
yeah,
or
the
not
unknown.
knowing. So it's
Yeah,
like, as you said there, like not knowing the people or not knowing what equipment's going to be free or, not knowing the environment. And it's like all of those different things can feed into that whole like anxiousness feeling. But if you actually leave at that point, so if you're anxious and then something scares you or terrifies you and you run away from it, all that does is it repeats that like neuronal pathway that
yeah.
says, this is dangerous, this is scary, avoid.
Mm,
Whereas it's like, even if you just go in and you just sit on a mat for 20 minutes and you leave, your brain goes, okay, I didn't die, nothing really bad happened. So, like, next time when I get scared, it's like, I think I can do that again, as opposed to only thinking that the only solution is like running away.
yes, that makes sense. If you avoid the thing that scares you, it gets bigger, and then if you
Yeah,
take action on it, it gets smaller. There's a great quote. I think it was I can't remember where I heard it from, but it was like the antidote to anxiety is action, not
yeah,
avoidance. And you just don't want to avoid the thing that scares you. So even breaking it down into small chunks, whether it is get to the door, get to the treadmill, get to the first machine, kind of thing.
yeah. Even if it's like, do you know what? It's like, David Lloyd's and stuff, they have like the little coffee houses and stuff. Just go in and get a coffee.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
don't even just go and look at the gym or like go and ask someone to like walk you around it. It doesn't
yeah.
even have to be, like run in and do a massive workout straight away. It's whatever's comfortable for you.
Just
And
drive around the building about 10
yeah,
times and go
woo.
home. No, it happened to me actually when I was younger. I remember I walked all the way up to a gym door of a place I hadn't been before. I got straight up to the door and I just
Yeah,
turned around and walked straight back, you know?
yeah.
And
But
and
it
yeah,
But
go
like
ahead.
again, it's kind of like with that 3 session, 5 session thing. It's like if you tell yourself, I'm just gonna get there today, and you do it, you take that from like a loss to a win because you're like, well, I got there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just managing what your expectations are for you,
Yeah.
as opposed to being like, well, this person did this, so that means I should do that too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the big thing that you've touched on when you're coaching people, whether it's fitness or anything else. It's managing expectations of what you think you should be doing versus realistically what needs to be done for you to kind of move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's natural. Like, I think, especially with what you said, when people are so desperate and when they come to us for coaching, it's from an emotive reason. Like, it's because they're unhappy with the way things are. They don't want things to stay the same. So, to say to someone like, there is a phase in period, there is a period where, you are getting used to things. Sometimes that isn't enough for people because they're like, but I want to see results now. And
Mm.
it's like, that's probably what's actually holding you back.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what's holding you back.
Yeah. That whole like mentality of like, no, I want to start now or like yesterday is probably what is putting the pressure on you,
Yeah.
which is stopping you from taking the steps forward.
Yeah. And that's not just in fitness as well. I think that's in life. Like we do that in
Yeah.
business, we do that in everything. It's like I want the result now. And
Yeah.
it's just human nature. What do you think you've from training people over the last couple of years and like coaching them and really getting to know your clients and knowing their struggles and knowing how to get the best out of them. What do you think you've learned about people?
I've learned a lot about people. Um, I genuinely like I actually think this is a bit cliche, but I genuinely think the biggest thing I've learned is like compassion for other people.
Yeah.
Because I think so many times someone has said something to me or messaged me something, and my immediate jerk reaction has been, oh, I've taken offense to that. Or like, it's been some sort of like negative reaction to what they've messaged me. And then it's come out in a few weeks that maybe, there was something else that was happening with them, or, that like something, there was some other external circumstance which caused them to be like that. I had someone a few months ago that was quite rude to me over Instagram. And I was like, I'm trying to help you. Like, you've been really rude to me. Like, I don't really like that. And then I sort of spoke to her a few months down the line, and she was like, I suffer with like really bad ADHD.
Mm,
And I was like, I was
that
like,
makes sense.
okay, now it makes sense why you did what you did. Like, now it makes sense the way that you spoke to me or the way that you just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. And then when she explained it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I need to be like, way more compassionate towards, like, it's not always about you. It's not always about, I'm taking offense to that. Sometimes it's like, do you know what? Maybe they got something that they're dealing with. Like, that's
Yeah,
fine.
it's such an important aspect of coaching that I think you only kind of you get more of it over time of dealing with different people because we all look at life through our own lens,
Yeah,
like of our own experiences. Oh, this is easy for me to do, so therefore it should be easy for someone else to do. Or this is how I would behave, so this is how everyone else should
should.
behave.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are my values, so therefore these should probably be this person's values. But then you start to you just you learn more about people from all different backgrounds and it just builds that empathy and when when you can have empathy for other people I think it's automatically going to make you a
it's
better coach. I
massive.
think that is the
Yeah,
fundamental of coaching is to have empathy for people because like what you might struggle with doesn't mean that they're going to struggle with that and what they struggle with doesn't mean that you're going to struggle with that because
with
you've
it.
had different backgrounds, you've been brought up differently, and life has just treated you differently. So yeah, I think it's a really important aspect of coaching.
Massively. What do you think you've learned? What do you think yours like your biggest takeaway from coaching? Because you've been in the game a bit longer than me. So
I think it would be quite similar to that is having compassion and having empathy, and that's why I agree with it so much because like even like a lot of the stuff that like a lot of the clients that I worked with over the years are people who suffered with kind of binge eating and stuff like that, and you start to realize that a lot of the issues that they have, it's not just like oh they're struggling with their weight, they should count their calories, get their steps
move
in.
more, eat less,
Yeah,
move
they
more.
should. Yeah,
Like,
they should do exactly what I do to stay healthy and fit. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? But without understanding, and then like a lot of the I remember having like very deep conversations with clients, and like you have to you kind of have to tread carefully because you're not their therapist or you're not qualified to be a therapist, but they do. Maybe you're the only one person that they can kind of offload on, and
yeah,
they would tell you stories about even their childhood, about different ways that they were brought up, being introduced to Weight Watchers and stuff like that, just because they were a little bit bigger as a kid, and they were bullied in school, and then their mum would take them to Weight Watchers, which introduced like this kind of diet culture and shame, and this led them to secret eat and not eating in front of people in case they were slagged, and then going
yeah,
home and then raiding the presses at night when nobody was looking, and creating these poor relationships with food that is a big barrier for people being happy and getting the results that they want. And I was like, I would never know any of that stuff if I didn't enter the realm of coaching. I'd probably just be like every other gobshite on social media saying, "Oh, he just needs to have more discipline or just have more willpower." And it's like
Yeah.
it's only when you actually talk to people and you understand their life story where you actually create that empathy and compassion to to be a better coach, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think that's where that whole like one-to-one or that whole personalized element comes in.
Yeah.
Because you can't just give someone exactly the same thing as someone else because it won't, whether it works physically, mentally, emotionally, it's going to be completely different person to person.
Yeah, you can't just put 10,000 people on an app and expect them to get the
Or make
results they want.
progress.
Yeah, to make progress. Because a big aspect of it is like, okay, yes, these people should probably get more steps in or lift some heavy weights or eat a high protein diet and drink some more water, get to sleep early. And we know all the fundamental basics of physical health and how that replicates to other areas of your life. But it's like until somebody knows that you care, they're not really going to take on that advice. Like, unless I know
Yeah.
that someone gives a shit about me, it doesn't matter what they say. It could be the best advice in the world. I'm still probably just going to ignore it because that person doesn't care about me or I don't relate to that person. Because it could
Yeah.
be the other thing is like, oh, that person could have great advice, but I just don't relate to them. So it's very hard for me to take on that advice and incorporate it into my life.
Yeah, 100%. I think coaching is so much more of a relationship than people
Yeah.
understand. It's like the clients for me in my program that get the absolute best results
Mhm.
is the ones that I can like they have a good relationship with me and they relate to me and they take on my advice because they get me, I get them. That's the best. And that's why I think you have such a selection process
Mhm.
to actually getting into that coaching program because it's like fundamentally you need to know that we actually get on before we do anything.
And that's also relates back to why it's important to show up as yourself on social media. Like you
Yeah.
said, like show up as your unfiltered self because that's actually what's going to draw in the right people for you and for them so then they can actually get the result they want because they know who they're getting when they get Chloe. Like they know who
Yeah,
Chloe is because like she's being herself online because she's comfortable to be herself without judgment. So therefore
yeah,
when they get into the coaching process, like they already kind of know who you are, they know kind of like how you talk to them, and that just makes everything run smoother for them as well.
yeah. And I've had people as well, like ask my friends, like friends of friends, and they sort of ask my friends, is she like that in person? Like, is she generally like the same? And they're like, yeah, like she's unhinged and unfiltered. But it's like, you have to, because I personally can, do you know this whole like fake it till you make it? Like, I can't fake being me. Like, I just am me. You either like me or you don't like me. I prefer it if you liked me, but if you don't like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's exactly that because if you're showing up as a different person, there's only so long that you can keep that like persona up, and I think people see right through that so quickly.
Yeah, when you put so many hours into talking online, like eventually the real you is going to it'll be too exhausting to fake being someone else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you just won't be able to do it.
you won't be able to do it.
But I think it's easier to. I think that's where like videos and just like talking on your stories and stuff. I think that's where that gets across your real personality.
Yeah.
Because I think even in like captions or like photos,
Mhm.
you're not still seeing that raw element of you. So
Yeah,
I
well,
do
that's why
try and
that's
like,
why a lot of like big influencers, the only thing you really see from them is pictures and then
yeah,
captions that they've probably stolen off someone else because they're probably terrified to show their real self
their real self.
or don't
But
have
I've
that like
But people are so like, I think as well, like our world's become so PC and you can get cancelled and slated on
yeah
and so much hate for saying the wrong thing that it's like, I think you get that like paralysis when you have more followers and have more opinions because it's like, you know, I've got more people watching, more
yeah
people going to tell me I'm wrong,
yeah
more people going to say something they don't agree with. And it's like, you know, if you don't like my content, you don't like my message, just unfollow me.
yeah
Like, honestly, it's fine.
yeah
Please
yeah.
don't write a comment. I don't need to see it. It's like I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna ask another question on the gym, but I wanted to go into these are called Chloe's wisdom rounds.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. Shoot.
All right, so first question that I'm gonna ask you: what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received? Very difficult questions to think off the top of your head, but
Okay.
gonna back you.
Best piece of advice, I think I listen to a lot of podcasts and I
Mhm.
think I've got two, I guess they're not really pieces of advice, they sort of are two phrases. And I think I live my life by these two phrases. Number one, be a wolf, not sheep,
Mhm.
because it's just like, just don't follow what everyone else is doing.
What
Go
does that
carve your
look?
own
What does that look
paths,
like in your everyday life, do you think?
taking action,
Mhm.
just not being scared to take action and also not doing other things because someone else says to you, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Doing it because you're like, that's right for me.
Mm.
That's my first one. Second one is like new level, new devil. Because I feel like every time you like level up or take that next step, something is going to come and just like slap you in the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
And you've just got to be set like every time you get a setback or a knockback, it's like, okay, but what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
And that sounds so easy to say, but I have done that in my life with some horrific situations. And it's actually got me so much further than just being like, well, that was really rubbish. And like,
Mm.
that's it. I'm always like, what can I learn or what can I get from that?
Yeah, it
You know?
also that phrase also reminds me of one that I always use when it's like there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So it's like you think that okay, you get to the next level or you get to this stage of business or whatever it is. It's like oh, once I get to that stage, then everything that's when
I'll be
everything
happy.
yeah
It's like,
everything will figure itself out. But then there's just more problems. They might be
yeah,
better upgraded problems, but they probably come with more pressure or whatever it is. So like there's always going to be you know,
something.
yeah, something fires to put out or something like that. That's really good. If you could go back in time and give yourself one lesson, what would it be?
One lesson, what would it be? Um, live in the now and don't worry about the future.
Mm,
Because I've spent so much time wasted worrying about what I thought life was going to look like, or what I thought a certain situation was going to turn out as, or, what I thought was going to happen. None of it happened. And I just wasted a load of time getting myself round and round in spirals, thinking, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, catastrophizing. And it never happened. And something completely different happened and it shoots you off on a different path. So I think if I could go back, I would just be like, you only know right now. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You only know right now. So just like obviously have half an eye on the future, but live with right now in mind instead of constantly worrying about what's coming next.
is that kind of like having expectations for how you feel like your future was supposed to plan out?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Or just being worried that maybe the trajectory that you're on right now is going to take you somewhere that you don't
right.
want to be or don't
Mm,
like. And it's like it just because you think a certain situation is going to play out in a certain way, it just doesn't mean it will. In
mm.
good and bad ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
like you can't predict it. So
So
why
yeah,
worry
it's
about it?
it's kind of like just trying to let go of control.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Which is a difficult thing because that's scary.
Yeah. And I am a bit of, I wouldn't say I'm a control freak, but I like to be in control. Something I'm really working on is like taking a bit of a step back and just being like, what will be, will be.
Mm.
Um, but I'm a bit of a micromanager. So, so that's hard for me. Yeah.
They're all traits of people who have played high level sports. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What like control,
Control.
micromanaging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key to true happiness?
I think it's figuring out what it looks like for you.
Hmm.
Because for someone else, true happiness is like, oh my gosh, I've got my own private jet and I'm flying to all these different countries. And like, true happiness for me is like sitting in my living room with like my family around me, literally laugh until I can't breathe because, we've played Pictionary and something silly's happened. Like, it's figuring out what does happiness look like to you and then not let anyone else be like your happiness should look like this or it should look like that, just being like what am I comfortable with. And it goes back to the whole social media of constantly feeling like you're not doing well enough or you could be doing better or you could be doing something different. Is like figure out what happiness looks like to you and then just do everything you can to like drive yourself towards what makes you happy in yourself.
That kind of leads on to my next question because you've
Mm.
kind of touched on a little bit, but what does the perfect day look like for you if you were to design your life? Because I always say to my clients is like we all want to set like real big grand goals, and that's absolutely fine. I think you should be ambitious, but also remember that like you could spend your whole life trying to chase a goal, and then to achieve it and then to die. But like
Yeah,
it's really important then to, make a really successful life. And I think the best way to make a successful life is to have a successful day, because your days make up your life.
yeah.
So what would you say what does the perfect day look like for you?
Perfect day, honestly, probably just like seeing as many people as possible, or like, getting outside,
Is it
being out.
similar to, is this here's my real question. Is it similar to how your days look like now?
Interesting question. Um, no, I think I could work. I'm constantly torn between like, you know, you work hard or, you try and it's very difficult, I think, running a business. It's like, you need to put in the work at some point,
Yeah.
but then you also you have this freedom that you're like, oh well, I want to go out and get a coffee with my nan, or like I want to go and do this thing. And then it's
Yeah.
like, but actually you have to sit in and do the work, otherwise you won't have a business that will let you go and get a coffee with your nan.
Yeah.
So I
It's
guess my
balance,
perfect,
isn't it? It's the most difficult
yeah.
thing in the world.
And you know what? I don't always know if there is a perfect balance
No.
or a perfect day, or I think it's just like about taking perfect moments, building up as many perfect moments as you can in a day.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
balance can look like, okay, I'm gonna do 12-hour graft on the laptop, and balance could look like, okay, I'm not gonna spend any day on the laptop at all here and go out and
yeah,
have a coffee with my nan or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. Or it's like, this week I'm gonna sit and just grind, and then next week I'm gonna take a couple of days off, or, I'm gonna go and do this thing afterwards. I think it's just like figuring out what you're happy with and not constantly getting in a zone of like doing too much or too little.
So
I don't
here's
know
a
if that's
question.
answered your
No,
question.
that answers it perfectly. So here's a question for you then. So what are you working towards? What are you just defining as success?
Oh, that's a very difficult question because going back to the athlete mentality, like what success looks like to me is very different to what success might look like for someone else. I'm very hard on myself
Yeah, I read
because I,
that when I was going through when I was doing my show notes. I read that as well. I was going to touch on that.
what did you read that just people are
That
super
that
hard?
you're no that you're hard on yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I hold myself to high standards.
Yeah.
Because I want to but I think.
Can that work to your detriment as well, though?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes I do think it. I was like, I wonder what it'd be nice to just be like, I don't know, just like have lower expectations for myself and like constantly hit them and be like, oh, this is amazing. Like I'm smashing it. But I think the reason I was thinking about this the other day, the reason why I love my life and what I do with the coaching so much
Hmm.
is like every day there's a chance for me to show up in a way that's better.
Hmm.
Like every day there's something I'm working towards, there's a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that gives me so much like energy.
Yeah,
Um,
progress is important to you.
Progress,
It's a
yeah.
it's a value of yours.
Yeah, massively
Yeah.
looking for progress. I think for me, success would look like building out a really like a big team of women that are supporting each other somewhere just so as we can do things like meet up. And I think I've got a lot of online stuff at the minute, but I think in the future I want it to be more hybrid type where, we're meeting up, we're doing group events, we're doing photo shoots and just helping to because I think a lot of people struggle with loneliness, struggle with social media taking them away from real life connection a lot.
Hmm.
So it sounds a bit silly because I do so much online and my business is an online coaching business. But I think moving into the future, I want to make it so it's like we connect online
Yeah.
and then it goes more into hybrid real life.
Yeah, and I'd completely
Yeah.
agree with that, because I've done the same myself, and like I would never like I'm not I don't like talking about social media or online like it's the devil, because like it's provided a lot of great things in my life, and it's also provided a lot of great relationships in my life. Like there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that I met through online, whatever way that was, and then ended up meeting in person and ended up having really great friendships with them people, and that came from like that
From
is one of the
online.
benefits of online. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And
I
you can
get
reach so many more people. Like we'd never be having
no.
a conversation. Do you know? Like, and your paths would never meet. And I think there's so much positive about it if you can control it instead of letting it control you.
Yeah, I think that's the big important word, is being able to kind of control or manage it as well
Manage it.
as you can. But you like you said, and it's also easier to then find people who have similar values or similar ambitions to you. Whereas if it's just kind of maybe people in your own town, it's like you might not be able to find that connection with people
Yeah,
as much because there's less people. I mean,
there.
from a
And
parameter.
I also think as well, like, it's possible to change. And I
Yeah.
do genuinely believe people can change. And I think sometimes what social media allows you to do is say you are this person, you can decide you want to be this person, and you can be that person without other people knowing who you were before.
Yes.
And I think there's a real like beauty to that you can progress and that you can change. And
Yeah.
then,
Without being
you
pulled
know,
back.
you're not getting pulled back. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
I
just
think
moving
I
forward.
think that's a reason why loads of people love to go away solo traveling and stuff like that is because like they feel like they have to live up to a certain persona that they created maybe when they were younger, when they were a
Yeah,
teenager in front of their friends or people that know them. And then, obviously you're not like you shouldn't be the same person that you were in your
yeah,
20s than you are in your teenage years and in your 30s as you are in your 20s. Like you should be kind of growing and adapting and becoming more self-aware, whatever it is, and changing what you value. But it's like then when you go away, you kind of have that kind of fresh
the
slate.
freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a scary thing. Like, I literally had this conversation with someone, and like, I'll literally use her own words. She was like, I'm the fat, funny friend. And I was like, but because she came to me and she wanted weight loss. And I was like, okay, well, what would your life look like if you weren't the fat friend, if you were just the funny friend? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, sometimes that shift change, that personality change is like just as scary.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's your whole
It's
identity.
your identity, and and even if it's something that you don't want anymore,
Like, yeah,
there's a safety in that, and you keep resorting back to it.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and again, that's another reason why I think people find themselves stuck is because they identify with I'm this person.
Hmm.
And actually, the person they want to be is this person, but
Hmm.
they're struggling to bridge the gap between the two. And they feel like they need to stay as this person to keep their friends, to keep their identity, to feel comfortable. And that can be quite a shift that you need to kind of break past as well.
Yeah, that's a huge mindset shift that has to come along with it. And it's like it's the same if someone says, "Oh yeah, I'm just lazy or I'm just not motivated" and stuff like that. It's like you're attaching a certain identity to you because that's what you've known the whole time and it's comfortable. And then
Yeah.
it's just trying to find proof to why you're not that thing. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if I make my, I might be lazy, but if I make my bed today, at least I'm less lazy because my bed's made. Or do you know what I mean? It's like that is
Yeah.
like a win or a bit of evidence that you're not what you were saying that you were. And it's like it takes time though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I've done a lot with this with myself because it's like I think the easiest way that I found that I've battled that is how you say to yourself in your head, I'm not.
Hmm.
So it's like I used to say to myself, I'm not a runner. I can't run. I'm not a runner.
Hmm.
And I last year, like before Christmas, I ran a 10K and I was like, wow. I was like, I'm a runner now.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's like shifting that from going, I'm not a runner is never going to get you anywhere.
no,
Whereas if you're like, I'm trying to be a runner, or like, I'm figuring out whether I'm a runner, or like, I'm gonna be a runner,
yeah,
even just saying that to yourself, what with anything, like even with that example, I'm lazy. I'm not lazy, I'm gonna make my bed. Or like I'm the sort of person that makes their bed in the morning,
yeah,
shifting from I'm lazy to I'm this person.
yeah.
Because how you talk about yourself really does then lead through in your actions, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, yeah, and then also that also flips the other way as well, the other way around as well as how your actions will lead to how you talk about yourself. Well, you know what, I put my runners on and I went for a run down to the end of the road or not. So I've created evidence that I
That I
am what I
am.
am, what I say I am.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it
yeah,
also a lot of it starts with just deciding that all right, I want this change and I'm gonna do these two things in order to make this change. It's I'm gonna say I am what I am and I'm gonna prove it to myself as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that if you can do those two things, I
Yeah.
think that's literally where all change
Yeah.
originates or comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last question I'll have for you,
go
and
on.
then so what are the most important relationships in your life right now?
I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic family and I have a lovely boyfriend and a great group of friends.
Hmm.
And I think my friends right now support me so much. I think your social group and who you're around makes the biggest difference. You know, I can be grafting and working. I've not seen my friends in weeks. Don't worry, Chloe, we can't wait to see you when you come out.
Mhm.
So supportive. I've had friends in the past that I don't reply for a few weeks. It's like, well, you're not my friend.
Mm.
Those people hold you back so much more than you realize. And maybe it's nothing, again, maybe it's nothing to do with them. Maybe, you know, they miss you or want to see you. But I think that understanding of being like, you know, Chloe, we support what you're doing. We appreciate what you're doing. We share your pages. You know, I post every day. They're liking every post. You know, they're commenting every like. You know, it's supportive friends, supportive family. Your relationship, it's massive.
And do you think that you have a good balance with, work life to relationship life? Um,
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I was like single, really single for like 2 years.
so
So
you were able to be selfish with your time.
oh yeah, like I was literally just like in my graph mode. Like I literally didn't like even do you know how you're meant to be like the fun single friend? Like my friends just stopped asking. They're like, she's doing nothing. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
she's
yeah.
working, she's boring.
She's not out.
Yeah.
She's on her laptop.
Yeah, like she's got nothing to give us. There's no gossip. Um, but I think yeah, so like now then sharing your time with other people is like, oh, okay, like you know, I've got to draw back a little bit more time from just being locked in and actually go live a little bit.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
But
difficult.
do you find when you do spend that time with them that you feel more rejuvenated when you do work?
Yeah. Oh
Mm.
God, yeah. Yeah. And like my boyfriend right now, he's great because he's very chilled. I'm quite like high energy.
You're
I
the
can get a little
opposite.
bit stressed. And he's just like, Chloe, just put your phone down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's quite a good balance because it just like manages me to just like cool off a little bit. And then as you say, like when you then go back to it, you've got more energy or you feel mentally more clear because you've had that time off. Um, it's just about having someone I think that like supports you to say, I support you when you're working hard, but I also know when to be like, I think you're done
Yeah,
for
is
today.
this
Like,
is this ambition or is it burnout kind of thing?
yeah, are you actually going to get anything more productive, or are you
Yeah.
just like staring at your screen, kind of?
Yeah, yeah. I just mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Chloe, if people wanted to keep up with the work that you do, if they wanted to reach out and ask you any questions in terms of coaching, in terms of training, any general questions as well, where can they find you?
Train with Arcadia on Instagram, and then Train with Arcadia on TikTok. I am on Facebook as well, but I would say the best place to find me is probably Instagram.
Okay, and we'll leave it in the show notes. Thank you very much for
Amazing.
today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you like that episode and you want to see more content like this, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next one.